Yo, what's going on everybody? It's your boy Prez, and this is the strength build that you guys have been looking for. This is the absolute Giga Chad build. For my boys who've been going to the gym, you guys are gonna love this build, since this is a super powerful strength reliant build. Now, it doesn't just have to be strength, you can scale into anything you want, especially since we're gonna be scaling into faith a bit. So, you know, if you want to throw a few lightning bolts like Thor, you can definitely do that. But seriously, let's get to this build guide, and first, I'm gonna remind you guys that leaving a like helps me out a lot, and if you guys do that, thank you so much. And please consider subscribing, since I've been covering everything Elden Ring, and I will continue to do that. But let's get to this absolute Giga Chad build. Starting with my favorite part of the build, the amazing underrated colossal sword, the Watchdog Greatsword. This sword is a beast from its damage to its range, but the reason that I love it so much is the S scaling and strength when you apply a heavy affinity onto it. And for the heavy Ash of War that you're going to apply, I recommend using the Lion's Claw for the easiest stagger potential, and the great damage and range with the Lion's Claw Ash of War is so nice as well. Another sick feature about the sword is that since it's a rare drop, only dropping 2% of the time, you're not going to be seeing many people using this. So if you want to kind of be a little bit more unique with your build and show off this sword to your friends and flatten people in PvP, this is going to be your go-to weapon. And I can't say enough good about this weapon, so if you want to get it, I'm going to show you how to get it right now. All you have to do to get the Watchdog Greatsword is come to the mountaintop of giants and come to the Giants Conquering Hero's grave. Once here, follow the path I take and kill the Watchdog. Remember, it's a rare drop, so raising your discovery will help you get this sword, and just grind this out. You can either get one, and if you're done there, that's fine, but you can get two and power stance them, and that's what I prefer to do. Next for this build is probably gonna be best if I cover the seal, and for my seal I use the Golden Order seal, but you can use any seal you want to use. But I personally use this for the passive effect on it, which boosts fundamentalist incantations, basically meaning any spell which requires faith and intelligence to use will be buffed. And since I use Order Blade, which applies holy damage to my weapon, I definitely am going to use this seal for the added damage. Next is the armor, and there's two ways you can go about this. You can go for aesthetics, or you can go a little bit more for a meta build. It's really up to you, but for the aesthetics part, I use the Crucible Axe armor because the look of this armor is absolutely sick. It isn't adding any passives or anything crazy to the build to really help. It really is just the looks for me. And to get that Crucible Axe armor set, you're gonna need to head to the Ariza Hero's grave and progress all the way through this dungeon and just kill the two enemies at the end. Once you kill them, you'll get the armor. But if you wanted to wear something a little bit more meta to boost your damage, I would put on the Raptor's Black Feathers, since this is going to increase your jumping attack damage. And for your helmet, there's a few ways you can go here, but I'd probably recommend going with the Fanged Imp helmet, and that's pretty much going to do it all for the armor. You can really just go for aesthetics, or you can go for meta. It's up to you. And finally, for what I use in this build, we're going to be covering the talisman slots. For the first slot, I use the Claw Talisman. Pretty straightforward. It just increases your jumping attack damage. In my next slot, I use the Shard of Alexander. This increases the damage I'm able to do with my Ash of War, which is the Lion's Claw Ash of War. And in this build, you're going to be using that Ash of War a lot, so you definitely want to boost the damage on it. After that, I use the Sacred Scorpion Charm. This gives me more holy damage, so when I apply Order's Blade to my sword, I can do more damage. And finally, I use Flock's Canvas Talisman, since this greatly increases potency of incantations. But since I don't use any spells to attack with, I'm not too sure how much this is really doing. I don't know if it's actually buffing what I'm applying to my sword or not. So feel free to play around with those talismans if you want, but these are the ones that I use. Now, I'm going to cover some other things with the build that you should probably know. In my physic, I'm using the Holy Shrouding Cracked Tear for boost holy damage when I drink this. And for my second item in it, I'm using the Stone Barbed Cracked Tear. This will help me stagger bosses and enemies way quicker. For stat requirements, I really don't like telling people what they should and shouldn't use, so feel free to spec however you want, but remember this. The Watchdog Greatsword requires a minimum of 30 strength and 10 dex to be used, and if you're going to be power stancing these, you're going to need a lot of strength. And the seal that I'm using is going to require 17 intelligence and 17 faith, and that's a bit expensive, especially if you're making a new character. So that's why I say feel free to spec however you want, and remember that any seal will work. This is just personally the seal that I use. And on that note, if you're making a new character for this build, I would recommend you just go into Vagabond. And just to wrap up this video, I'm going to go over how to utilize this build to the best of its ability. And since this is a strength build, it's really not too complicated. If you're able to get two of these swords, definitely power stance these, because it's going to make you do a lot more damage on your jumping attacks. But if not, these rules will still apply. You're just going to be doing a little bit less damage. Before any PvP fight or boss fight, always apply the buff Order's Blade, and then use Golden Vow, since this will boost your AR, along with the talismans that you have already boosting your AR for holy damage. Then drink your physic, enter the fight. When you do a jumping attack, if both swords land, this is going to do super high damage. But your Lion's Claw Ash of War is how you'll get the boss to stagger so easy, so keep that in mind. You don't need a pre-buff for every single fight you do since this build is already really strong, but before boss fights, if you want an easy fight, this is how you're gonna do it. Anyways, if you watched this far in the video, I really do appreciate it, so thank you so much. Please, if you could leave a like, I would appreciate that so much as well. While you're there, maybe you could subscribe, and with that being said, my name is Prez, and I'm out, bruh. Peace.